welcome back to another wonderful episode of the Unveiled Voices. Thank you, first, everyone, including our dedicated listeners. We know you, we see you, we feel you, we love you. Thank you for tuning in every week to listen to these little girls' voices. We really, really appreciate you. So yeah, we do. We appreciate them. So thank you very much for listening. And if this is your first time here, we are also making a shout out to you. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful journey of the Unveiled Voices. If you are yet to catch up on the previous episodes, please do so. Particularly this episode that we are going to be discussing today, because this is like a follow-up to episode what is that? I was like episode 3 or 2.
It's funny how it's going by.
It has going by so quickly.
Yeah, because we do weekly drops. So it's like
Yeah. Okay, cool. So this would be a follow-up to episode 2. In episode 2, we talked about goal setting. So this episode is just going to be like a sequel to episode 2, where we discuss instances of when we've created goals or goals for ourselves and we didn't quite work out or turn out just the way we would. But before then, Anifah, how are you? How was your week? Mine, can I go first? This week was, so I went to the office this week because I didn't go the previous week. So the previous week was when the old rioting thing was happening. So even though London wasn't as heated as the other parts of the United Kingdom, I just didn't go at all the week before this week. So I went into the office this week. Was quiet because a lot of people are out on vacation. So it wasn't
it's the holidays time.
the holidays. I'm counting down to mine, like countdowns.
Yay!
No worry, when I'm back, I'll maybe not give you guys tea on how my vacation went, but counting down to my vacation. So I think one of the things that sustained me this week as well, even though it was quiet, I had work to do, but the fact that I knew that okay, countdown X more days to my vacation was kind of like the motivation for me to put through the week. So yeah, that's pretty much how my week went. How about you, and how was your week?
So unlike you, I actually went into office not the first day after the whole riot thing, because I think the riot happened over the weekend in different parts. Actually, that weekend, my husband, and a few of our friends were at a camp specifically for.
Yeah.
And for
Do we
me,
need an episode of that? You haven't given me the takeaways.
yeah. I think there were a lot of takeaways, even though I was very exhausted. I think this was one of the few times where I was actually dozing off in some of the lectures, not because they were not interesting, but just the leftover stress of I had worked half day on Friday. We did a long drive. I didn't really sleep on the drive because my friends were with us and we were just chatting all through. But I think overall that experience was interesting because we have this country that actually supports a group of Muslims to have their own society, and events like the one we had attended, and we're being uplifted spiritually. And then you have the contrast where the whole country is in some I don't even know how to describe it, but where people are being like, people are trying to take over, we don't want Muslims, off the back of so many different things happening. That deserves a whole episode in itself, because I would like to address some of those things with the sensitivity that it requires. But I think for me there was that like mental dichotomy of I have this safe space where at this event we're having these lectures where we're talking about stuff that really uplifts us as Muslims, and then you have that state, as I said, of the entire country going to like shit over this very polarizing way of thinking. But yeah, it was a really good experience. I didn't go to work on like the Monday of it because I was just exhausted. But on Tuesday there was that question of will I go in, will I not go in? When I saw that actually there wasn't a lot of like rioting in London, I felt like okay, I wanted to go in. And so I went into work,
I mean, alhamdulillah, London wasn't as crazy as the other regions because we're seeing a lot of mosques getting bombed, refugee homes getting bombed. It was crazy.
I think it brings me to a point about, just sometimes choosing where I'm not saying that London is like super associated from this, but the point is London is probably more diverse
very.
and just as a result of that, you find that those things will most likely not happen. Obviously, caveating that things might still happen, but it's just like sometimes as an immigrant, when you're choosing like places to go to or where to live or where to have a family, these are some of the things or the hard things that you have to face and like make decisions of what to do.
Especially when the world is not yet there. The world is moving, gradually getting there, but we still have issues of racism.
Absolutely. This is something that we discuss in our friend groups. Do you want to live in a place where predominantly it's probably more of a certain race?
Exactly.
And the ripple effects that might have on not you because you're probably already an adult, you have some level of like resistance, you know how to find your people. But imagine you have a child growing up in that environment. How does it speak to their sense of identity? How does it speak to, their sense of belonging, which is a very important thing, right? If we live here and we have kids here, right, your kids are going to be more Brits than you. You're probably not even Brits, right? So these are the questions that some of these things like bring up. I guess we don't want to spend so much time talking about it. It's a very heavy topic, but I would say like that week following the week of the riots was like interesting to me, and I think it deserves a whole episode in itself of like when things like that happen, what do you do, how do you handle it? I could tell that some people at work might have wanted to talk about it. They weren't
exactly.
So I work in a very small startup, which is very different from the company. I think it's interesting how the different sizes of companies handle this type of things. Like even going back to the pandemic and George Floyd and things like that. But again, not to go into it. Things like that deserve a sort of like separate on its own, and we can share our views. But overall, this week, interesting week. Let me put it that way. Learning some things about myself, but overall, alhamdulillah, can't complain.
Alhamdulillah. Now we pray that Almighty Allah continue to protect us, and the entire Muslim Ummah, entire Black people in the UK. I pray that Almighty Allah continue to make it.
And those of us that are the intersection of
the intersection of it, Black Muslim. May Allah continue to protect us. Okay, so taking aside the down and whatnot. So like we said at the intro, they will be talking about part 2 of the goal setting episode we referred in episode 2. And will basically be more about the goals that we set for ourselves. We should maybe start on what's our thinking, or why do we feel some goals end up not being achieved? For me, it can kind of bucket it into the level of priority or importance that goal is to me at that particular point in time, right? So I think the more frequent example I use these days is my fit farm goal, right? I have the I want to be a gym rat. I want to go to the gym every day or 4 times a week. I want to eat healthy vegetables. But in terms of the ambitious goals that I've set for myself, I still find that month in, month out, I'm not there yet. So it's probably like I would exercise once in a week, and that exercise is not necessarily me going to the gym. It's probably maybe like me deciding to walk home instead of taking the train just to close my apron, stuff. So I think for me, the reason why I've not been able to like really achieve that goal is that priority in the sense. So that goal for me is not because I want to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Alhamdulillah, I'm healthy as it is. So I don't think I have that
Sense
innate
of
or
burden.
that really, really burning need for me to be a gym person, like go to the gym 24, I don't know, 4 times a week, kind of that. So I don't really have that burning motivation for why I should do that. So I think if I would summarize why I've not been able to achieve that goal, even though I've set that goal for myself for a very long time now, is that I don't have the motivation. Like there's nothing pushing me to really, really achieve that goal. So I think that would boil back to that's when you are setting that goals, you need to have a why at the point of setting that goal. Because if you don't have a why, there won't be that propeller, there won't be that push, there won't be that motivation for you to achieve it. I talked about in the previous episode, I set a goal for myself to say I want to learn data analytics. The why for me was because I needed to upskill in my career space. Like I needed something more than what I was currently doing. That why was defined for myself as that's when I was setting that goal. So that was I was able to put in the effort. I was able to take up online courses, participate in hackathons, and eventually be able to achieve that goal for myself. But for Fit Farm, I don't have the money why yet, so there's not that really good motivation for me. Like for the goals that you set for yourself and didn't quite work out, why would you say they didn't quite work out?
So when I think about like things that didn't work out or goals that didn't work out, projects that kind of crashed, I roughly categorize them into two broad reasons for failure. So one of them is what you've rightly touched on, something that has to do with like the intrinsic, like from the inside, like what is driving this goal? Why do I need to do it? For example, and the Fit Farm is a very good example. So you don't have a case where someone has told you that, oh, if you don't move 3 times a week, if you don't go to the gym and do like HIIT or what do they call it, or weight lift, then it might mean that X, it might mean that Y. There are no immediate consequences to that. And that kind of goes into the category of that first bucket where like it's from the inside. Either the why is not defined, you don't understand the consequences enough, because when you said earlier that you are healthy, I was looking at you, yes, you're healthy, but I've read some books around like fitness and all, and there have been studies done where like one of the greatest like indicator that someone will live beyond a certain age is just like doing exercise or not, or keeping their cognitive like capabilities. I can't remember. I think there was this book called Outlive by Peter Attia. I think if you read that book, you're going to
drag myself to the gym.
Yeah, so there are real life consequences to this. So what I say is that sometimes the internal is affected by you just not really knowing the consequences of not doing that thing you're trying to do. Your why is not clear. You're not prepared. You don't really understand what it means to put in the work for that goal. So that's one category. Second category is also like, really, let's face it, sometimes goals just don't work out because life happens, right? So sometimes people fall sick, right? People get diagnosed with stuff. Something might happen to people around you. You might not, like, things happen. Like, we're not living in a vacuum here. So for me, more often than not, you'll be surprised that sometimes the externals actually really weigh things down, right? More than we think. And again, just bringing this back that as Muslims, it's important to acknowledge that you might even really want something, right? You want it so much, you want it so bad. You've done everything right. You know the why you're doing it. You work is on your calendar. You're studying. You are going to the gym every time. But if God has not willed that thing for you to work out in the way you've envisaged it, like if Allah has not willed it for you at that particular time, it's nothing that you want to do. And for people that are not Muslims, right, they might attribute that to just element of luck, right? So I might be working on this thing so hard. I might be building a product that I think the market needs, and I might launch and it might fall flat because guess what? It's just not the right time, or I miscalculated somewhere. So it's important to understand that, again, sometimes, a lot of times, yes, we don't achieve goals because of our own intrinsic motivation or we're not putting in the work. But a lot of times,
Yeah.
things
Yeah. So on the last point you talked about, and it's actually interesting because I saw one tweet recently, and I actually want to ask you because we've already kind of like talked about why goals might not end up being achieved.
Yeah.
So I think the next part would be how do we handle things when things do not work out. But before we go there, when do you think is a good time to say, hey, I've been trying to achieve this goal and it's not working out? Do I need to re-strategize? Do I need to dump this goal?
Well,
Do I
what's
need
the
to
concrete example?
I'll give you an example. Yeah, and I actually want to allude it to one tweet I saw because that tweet actually got me thinking.
You and your tweet.
Me and my tweet.
Leave on Twitter right
Me
now.
and my tweet. No, actually, like I really see a lot of, as much as you have nonsense and different kind of takes, but you actually see some things that really get you thinking. So somebody had tweeted that maybe a friend or an acquaintance or somebody got their MBA admission at the 8th time of writing GRE. So this person wrote GRE the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time, seventh time, and eventually passed. I don't know if the person had been failing or probably the person hadn't been getting the required score to secure the MBA admission they were going in for. But this person was only able to get that desired GRE score at the 8th stage. Then somebody quoted that tweet and said, what is the so it will be interesting to see that it is a thin line between persistence and absolute insanity. Because you did it the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time, seventh time. You didn't give up. Like you kept on doing this same thing because you wanted to achieve this goal. And it only took the 8th time. So for that kind of person, is it trained persistence or just absolute insanity? Like, I'm going to stick to this very thing and I'm going to keep doing it. So, like, I just want to, like, know or to discuss. Because for me, first time, second time, third time, nah.
If you like you have stopped,
I think I'm going to be out of here.
As maybe God has not willed this.
Exactly. Like, maybe I need to switch cars and
I
just
need to
do
switch
something else.
Yes,
exactly.
Different. Yeah. So one thing I would say is that we don't know the full story. That person doing other many things in the past. If there's someone who can do GRE 8 times, I bet you they have a lot of other things that
they are doing right.
That being said, the tweet is right in saying that there's a very thin line between perseverance and insanity. And for me, I understand this person because I may not do it 8 times, but I feel like I'll do it more than 5 times. And the reason is that there are some times when you are so convinced, like you can really see the reality in your head about this thing. The vision is clear. And so even if you fail that exam 8 times, 10 times, you just keep going. That being said, that doesn't mean that this person was just doing the same thing. Probably they strategized. Probably they prayed a little bit differently. Probably the reason they kept going on is like, okay, maybe God has not willed this for me this time. Maybe I was too nervous. Like, so I actually belong to the school of thought where if your internal monologue or your internal reality is like the vision is clear, like, and it's not
and
like this is different from I just again you want some things or you want them, you just keep going. I'll give an example because exam is very like a worldly sort of thing. Right? For me, if I had to liken this is what I'll keep trying no matter what, is just becoming better connected to Allah, becoming a better person. And you know as well as I do that there'll be times where
your iman will be low.
Your iman will be low. And for people that are not, what's the word again? Is it faith?
We are faith.
We are humans, like life happens. And some of us take things that happen like externally a little bit more to heart than others. So, for example, my husband, I envy him so much. It's like he's just
same.
He takes things as they come. But for
I
someone
think it's
like
more of
me,
a men thing. Maybe men are able to
do you know
mask
what?
it.
I really
You know,
don't
they could-
generalizing.
Yeah, than
And
that.
I don't think they don't think about things like men, so to say. I
Mm.
just think that sometimes he doesn't beat himself. Like me, let's not even get started. Like sometimes your inner monologue, just to go back to it, it's crystal clear to me. It's clear that I want to be a very good Muslim. I want to be a very good person. So regardless of times where it seems like actually I'm a shitty person or I'm not a very good Muslim, I'll still pick myself back up, right?
Yeah, but sorry to cut you short of that, but for the example of being a better Muslim and being
Mhm.
connected to your Lord, that's not necessarily going to be like a monotonous thing that you'll be doing. So
What
part
do
of being so okay, so for the Jerry example, right?
you
This person had to keep writing Jerry
Yeah.
every single time for 8 times.
Yeah. You have
For
to
being
pray
connected,
every day,
yeah.
you have to
Yeah,
fast.
you have to
Yeah.
pray. Okay, so there's some things that
Probably even more because
there are some things that no. So my argument is there's some things that are kind of like given. Even days of your lower iman, like you just have to show up and pray, right?
Yeah,
But
but what's the quality of that?
exactly. What's the quality of that? That's what can
Do you
you
know
can
some
keep
people
improving.
stop praying?
Ha.
Yes, it's not ideal, but I think the point I'm trying to make is that,
Mm.
yeah, alhamdulillah, maybe for you, maybe when
Mhm.
you are a man, it's just that
You have to just show up
not
and
concentrating and
yeah.
some people actually do not pray. Some people
Mm.
completely go outside of the folds of Islam when you
Mm.
go through this moment.
Mm.
So
Sure.
I would still liken it to that, and that yes, again, being a better Muslim is probably a lifelong pursuit.
Mhm.
You can do GRA and say you are done.
Mhm.
But the thing I wanted to liken it to was that just going back again is not so far-fetched. Like when you know that again, internally you can see this thing.
Yeah.
You cannot picture not having this thing, right? And I think it's perfectly acceptable if you do GRE, I don't know, 20 times.
Yeah.
As long as
Like
you're not going back with the same exact playbook.
yeah.
I
Like
think
you're
that's the
not.
only thing. So I always say one thing, that how do you expect different outcomes when you're
Doing the
doing the
same
same?
thing. Mhm.
So if that person at least was varying their strategy a bit, maybe okay, instead of me doing overnight, I'm going to read
Mhm.
during the day when I'm more like. And again, one thing to keep in mind is that goals are not so about the end thing is good, right? In the sense that I've achieved this thing, but it's also about that journey. And this is even to myself that
Mhm.
journey of picking yourself back up, reading again, going to do the DRA again,
Mhm.
you are learning about yourself a lot.
Yeah.
Such that if you need to do an exam, maybe not DRA in the future, you probably know the best ways for you to study. So
Yeah.
it's to your thing about, is it insanity? Is it this? Were you probably the kind of person you have factors into this. Like you get the kind that's like, whoa, I've done it 2 times. Fine. That is you.
Not necessarily giving up because you've done it to them, but like maybe also a sanity check to yourself to say, okay, I've done it first time, second time, third time. Is this thing actually
Let me
my
read
thing?
through. Yeah.
Is this thing
That's
like
like personalities differ. And again,
Mhm.
what your own internal monologue is. So if your
Yeah.
internal monologue is saying that, well, Benny, let's review.
Let's move on. Let's
That's
bounce.
fine. But if
Yeah.
your internal monologue is like, we go again, you go again. Like,
Yeah.
what would be sad is you're now going against your nature because you think that, oh, this is a common sense. And like, to hell with common sense sometimes, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like,
Yeah.
you want to achieve things, sometimes you drop all the textbook knowledge and you do what is going to work for you, right? So for that, I feel like I can do that. I literally think I can do it. Will I do it? Probably not.
Nah.
Exactly.
All
And
that
again,
bomb.
it just speaks to the level of conviction that person had,
Mhm.
the level of we go again, which might not be ideal depending on the type of person you are or your own personality at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would also be good to mention that goals change, right?
It
Like
evolves.
it evolved. I mean, there was a time in my life when what I felt I wanted to be was the next Okonjo Iweala. like be the next finance
How
minister.
do you even be the next Okonjo? So
I
this is something that I probably want us to discuss separately, but I feel like for me, my childhood and my education was very aligned to STEM, right?
yeah.
Sciences. Not because I want. I actually, when I was in secondary school, I remember doing like a magazine with my friend. Like we literally used cardboard. I can't remember the contents, and it's so sad that I think
Oh, like a vision board thing.
not vision board. We literally made magazines and we were selling. I had this and Mariam. I'm always friends with the Mariam. So
Yeah, we are like that.
honestly, like I wanted to write so much. So I feel like there's some part of me that is very like inclined towards the arts and humanities, and like it evokes an emotion for me that science doesn't, and I'm like, maybe I didn't quite see a path to doing that. So just to your point about like, oh, you wanted to be the next Okonjo Iweala.
Yeah.
What's even the playbook to getting there, if that makes sense?
So I think Okonjo-Iweala was just the name attached to it, but
What was it
so
about like
being that definitely not. It's not like the goal has changed. It's just probably the how and the eventuality of it that have kind of changed.
yeah.
So kind of like be the quarter of everything, like you be the cause of everything, like just be that name and that.
Was it the leadership? It's like this was a leader, or
I mean,
was it the famous
like
this?
the leadership scene, there is everything she has like. There is also the fact that like in Nigeria and that like she was that first record. But if I'm being true to myself now, that kind of my announcement is the crappy thing is not where I am right now and not where I found would want to bring forward, right? So it's not as much as I still have my career goals and my leadership goals and all of that. That really job thing, the next thing they realize not just exactly it. So I've acknowledged that. So I'll give an example of what I thought I would see. In university, when I was when I decided I wanted to do investor research, and we had like spaces in the library then. So during my speaking breaks, when I'm away from like the library, so I'll go to my so like sleep. I'll be in the library. So we have female colleagues that are research. So they used to go for an internship on panels, on and you will start talking about inflation, how the Nigerian economy going, off of that. And I really find myself having that conversation, like going on TV and listening to from my presentation. And I'm calling that, and I'm not that one like that was like what I said. So, either one honestly, I got things something that comes up for them. But Sam know what I want to do for this is like coming here. I have to do right now. Well, I think it's like this to aligning with something we say, this to aligning with what you want to call this to aligning with what you say.
I agree. I think goals evolve, and while you might have defined like a success criteria in the beginning that, oh, okay, I've achieved this if I've done X, or actually like as we are growing over the years, our goals are also changing. I really like the example of, as you're a kid, when you're a kid, you kind of like latch onto the big things, like the most visible to you. And then as you are growing up, you start to realize your own values, and you're like, actually, okay, this part of the vision, I still want it. This other part, I don't care. So bye.
Yeah.
So at every stage in our lives, we're also supposed to be like reorientating the goal to our values, if that makes sense, right? It doesn't make sense if your values are completely in one sphere. The goals you say you think is in one thing. That's actually a recipe for it's not going to happen, right? Like you're kind of going against yourself. To move on a bit from just discussing broadly, how do you actually handle when things don't work out, right? How do you deal with it? Because even though we are saying that, sometimes it will not work. It's easier said than done, So what are some practical?
Yeah, so I was mentioning about when I applied to Vesiva, right? So I thought that was what I wanted. In fact, I was going to Lagos almost every week I was doing a day trip from Ife to Lagos to go out for the interviews. And I got to the final stage of the interview and they just ghosted. They never got back to me.
Whoa.
So at that point, because Vetiva, according to the gist we used to hear in school, was one of like the best paying Lagos firms. So like I was already imagining like if I was working
Your
there,
salary,
like everything. And I know for a very long time that thing kind of like eats me because I keep wondering why they never got back. If I were like the second person, at least from the people that I used to meet when we were going for the interviews, she also got ghosted. We both got to the final stage. I don't know if there was a third person that got to the final stage, but I know we both got to the final stage and we both got ghosted. Then I kept wondering what could have gone wrong. Was it like they didn't employ me, then they didn't employ then they employ and whatnot. We later got to hear that I employed somebody else, but I know for a very long time that kept bugging me. But yesterday when I was checking LinkedIn and I saw one of the guys that interviewed me, and I'm like, if I was employed that year, would I be where I am today? So for me, I'm like, okay, I have to like that.
sometimes you need
This
to.
thing did not work then. Yeah.
Sometimes you think something is good for you, and like I said, there's that element of Allah knows what's best for us, and He knows where He wants us to be. And so it's like there are some times that you have to kind of just step back there. Maybe
this is not it for me.
Exactly. But at the same time, if you want to go hard. Listen to yourself more, basically.
Yeah.
That was a very good example.
Yeah.
For me, one thing I want to talk about is regarding this, how I've kind of handled when things don't work out to do it in two ways. First of all, fully acknowledging that you win some, you lose some. Sometimes it's just not in the cards for you. Either forever or at that time. Sometimes you have to tell yourself the hard truths, right? So I'll give an example that people who are close to me probably know about. So you know how I've talked about, I got to work at Bank of America, came for the internship, came for the full-time offer. I've paraphrased a lot in between.
Summarize the story.
Exactly. So if I cut it down to raise now, is that the year before I came for the internship was, I think, the first time that Microsoft, all the way from Redmond, the US, came to Unilag to do like international recruitment in school. I didn't know about that, or somehow we got jumbled in things, and I never applied for that particular year. But in 2018, there was that opportunity again to apply. Basically, I applied and went through the process after my Bank of America internship. And then I got the opportunity to go for the final stage, which, if you know, they call it on-site interviews. It would be like 2 to 3 interviews back to back, and then they decide and let you know if you get the offer that day. So for me, I think it was a very exciting time because I kind of bagged the Bank of America offer, like worst case scenario, which at the end of this story might be a good thing or a bad thing. And I was like, Microsoft, like one of my very first computers was running like Windows, Microsoft. It was just like a no-brainer for me to want to go through that process. And the journey up to that was even very stressful in itself, in that the final stage was supposed to be in South Africa. Getting a South African
visa.
I literally, it was harder than getting my UK temporary work visa. It was such a crazy time. Like, I literally had to leave work because, again, I was working in Nigeria when I had gotten back from the internship at the time, and spend like the whole day on applying for this thing.
No.
There was no guarantee my passport was going to come back in time.
No.
That like to make the time for the trip. Anyway, all that happening behind the scenes, we did the interviews, and I woefully failed that. Like,
Say woefully.
I would say woefully. But I would say if you look at outcomes purely, right? I didn't pass because I didn't.
will.
And unfortunately, at the time, they were like they can't give more concise feedback, like what specific feedback. You didn't get it. You didn't get it. Well, alhamdulillah, got a free trip to South Africa, which at the time was really nice. Stayed, in one of the nicer hotels and I guess nicer parts of like town. And it was good character development for me in that, especially if you are the type. Let me speak to my high achievers here, like the people that you've just been doing things, you've been blazing, you've been going,
And then coming through.
Bro, it's gonna hit you hard.
Yep.
You are used to everything I touch turns to gold. It's easy. I don't need to stress myself so much. It just works out. You're still gonna come across goals where even if you pass, even if you are the best, it just doesn't work out. And I did like character development for me at that point was, sometimes you fail. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
The other piece I wanted to talk about was telling myself the hard truth. Like, I did not set myself up for success at all in this interview, right? So the interview style was very different. It wasn't more around, your understanding of the tools. It was purely something we call algorithms and data structures, right? Immediately I booked that interview, I should have been going ham. Not just in doing a lot, but in understanding the few I did. Because what were the questions? They were basic fundamentals, right? Like, how does a linked list work? And it was whiteboard in the sense that you're not coding, right? You're talking. So it's going to be pretty easy for your interviewer to figure out that, this one doesn't understand the core of this concept I'm asking. So I was ill prepared for those style of interviews, and I had to tell myself that hard truth at the time that yes, God may not have willed this for me at the time.
But you didn't also put in your best.
I was not 100%, and since that time, I'm always honest with myself. Like something like in anything before I go in, am I 100% for this thing? Do I need to be 100% for this thing? If not, fine, I can go. But if I need to be, then I'm not doing that thing at the time. I can push it forward and say, it's just not the right time for me. So sometimes you have to tell yourself the truth and make that hard call of like, I wasn't deliberate enough or I'm not prepared enough, so I'm not going to put my effort into this. Just realizing that at the time, alhamdulillah, I had some other offer. A lot of people did not, and they were in different shoes. They had to go through their own different journeys as well. I know some people that tried again, got it. That went to school first. Everyone's journey is different. So that was an example of, for me, I took a lot out of it, or just being prepared. Some people took a lot out of it, like maybe I need to go a slightly different route. And at the end of the day, it didn't work out, but there's always learnings to pick out. So I would say that's the way I handle when things don't work out. Right?
Yeah. I mean, like he says, at the end of the day, whatever is for you will surely be for you, right? But there's also the bit of Allah has given us, has granted us free will in a way. So you can't just lay back and say Allah will take care of. You have to also put in your best. So if you know deep in your heart that you are not putting in your 100%, 101% best, you should just know that, okay, this goal, I know I want this goal, but
I'm goal that you can start with half mind, right?
Yeah.
The problem is like you need to go all in. So you need to recognize which that is and just be truthful with yourself. Right?
Yeah.
Like you can lie to everyone else. Don't lie. Do you get?
Don't lie to yourself. Yeah.
One thing I was also going to say is that, again, these are like maybe bigger one-off examples, like interviewing for Microsoft, or wanting to get a job with Vertiva, or doing DRE. But even in our everyday lives, right? So I'll give an example. The new project I started, like my goal at the end of last week was to say, oh, I'm done with 2 of those things, right? I ended up finishing just one fully, second one very close. And the reason it happened was I'd made a judgment that, oh, as at Friday, which was tomorrow, I can wrap it up. But what ended up happening was someone made some changes that went in before mine, which now means my own changes have to account for that new thing. Right? Which is, I didn't factor that into this, right? And it happened. And for me, I was quite sad because, I didn't hit that. I mean, you can call it a smaller goal, so to speak, of, I'm going to be done with this within this week. And the way I try to use it to make sense of myself, especially something that is more continuous like that, where it's work, is like, that is just one instance of a greater sum. So if I zoom out and I look at myself from the last 1 month, or the last 2 months, or the last 3 years of my life, what's the dominant thing coming through? Is it someone who gets things done or not? If I zoom out, it's the firmer. So I'm like, okay, this is just one hiccup in itself. I don't know, thousands of other things are trying to do, and it's cool. So the point I want to bring out there is that for more mundane things, for things that are everyday, for things that are continuous, we will keep doing them, right? When you fail at one milestone, one thing, or it doesn't quite work out the way you've envisaged, think about the greater, like, what does it sum up to? The greater parts, like, what's the sum of the greater parts, so to say? And I think about, what can I pick up from this and factor it into my list. The next time I know, and if I say 1 week, I'm like, had 2 days because you don't know. Or keep your eye open, make sure that other people don't do stuff that would impact you. And zooming out and telling yourself that, you know what, actually, I've been smashing things. I've been very well. Yeah. There's also the part of, actually, I haven't been smashing things, I've been doing terribly. And then you need to have a bigger conversation about, like, when you say, like, am I even on the right path? Yeah. Do I need to smash everything? Like, do I need to do well all the time? Like, exactly. These are questions, but again, zoom out, pick your learnings, move on. So we've talked a lot about, like,
Yeah. So to just wrap it up, I think what I would just say is, life is black and white. There will be good times, there will be bad times. Human beings are insatiable. Like, we would always want all the good things of life. Yeah, but do your best. Map out your goals. Be true to yourself. Trust in God. And pray for the best. And may Almighty Allah make us be able to actualize all of the goals we've set for ourselves, provided that they are good for us. And for the goals that are not going to be beneficial to us, Allah should replace replace it with something more better. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a good way to end this episode.
I mean, before we wrap up, I would say, like, for our listeners, I think we felt we needed to do this.
Yeah.
Because it's quite easy to fall into that whole of, well, not a whole, but that thing of, oh, I'm killing it. But everyone you know that is killing it,
they have 1001 backstories.
They have a ton of examples where they did not kill it.
Definitely.
And look, even if they have been killing it and have never failed, they're not you, you're not them. So again, this is a way of us that could be setting that thing of, when we talk about the good, we can also talk about the less ideal that people can learn. So for you, listeners, please let us know if you have any goals that go quite well for you. If you want to share them with us, what your learnings were.
I want to do a shout out to our 100 followers on Instagram.
Oh my God,
100 organic followers on Instagram. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. Remember to keep sharing, keep liking, keep commenting. We see you. We love you and we appreciate you.
Yeah, I think it's amazing where when we started this, like, our goal was not on social media.
Yeah.
We wanted to start this and start getting the message out. So looking at our dashboard and like, people are actually listening to us. And some people even send us messages like, oh, we really enjoy it. Some that don't even have access to us will tell someone that knows. So it's like, it's really gratifying to know that the message is out there, helping some people. For us, we do enjoy, sharing as well. Because we know we wanted something like this when we're younger. Even now, like, let it not be the thing in people's minds that, oh, you get to a certain age or you're at a certain point in your career and look, we all need
it.
someone at that next level, looking at us, telling us, giving us the rundown, basically. So, if you have goals you want to talk about, share them with us. Feel free to mail us. If you are deciding on the right amount of things to like prioritize in your life and you feel like you need an external view, it's related to work, it's related to relationships, feel free to send us stuff. And till next episode. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bye.